suspension bridge. The tallest structure on the banks of the Thames River, the London Eye, is a giant Ferris wheel that has 32 air-conditioned pods, one for each London borough. The views from this 443-foot marvel will make your jaws drop. Big Ben, Westminster Abbey, St. Paul's Cathedral, the list goes on. No, don't leave London yet. There's another marvel we have to check out. The Shard. At 1,016 feet, at its highest point, the Shard in London beats the Eiffel Tower in height. This architectural wonder is one of a few places where you can gain a 360-degree view of the City of London. Immortalized in every movie, documentary and web series about Kolkata, the Howrah Bridge is probably Kolkata's best-known landmark. Completed in 1943, the first crossing on the bridge was not a car or a bus. It was a tram. Over 1 lakh vehicles and 1,50,000 people cross the bridge daily. Here's an interesting bit of trivia for you. All 5 of these modern marvels have an Indian element to them. Tata Steel has supplied steel to all of these mega structures. How's that for global reach?
फिर होने को है सफर पर चलने का बढ़ने का इतना है हौसला जितना भी फासला मंजिल तय मिल ही जाना है हमें है
हौसले पे सवार आगे बढ़ रहा है इंडिया और इसे रफ्तार दे रहे हैं 10 करोड़ हीरोज।
Winning is more than a mindset. It's about finding the perfect racing line with your eyes closed. It's about feeling the apex before you clip it. Making split-second decisions based on instinct. It's about knowing you've beaten the lap record before you even cross the line. Winning is to overcome. Winning is second nature. The 2020 TVS Apache RR310 with ride.
फिर होने को है सफर पर चलने का बढ़ने का इतना है हौसला जितना भी फासला मंजिल तय मिल ही जाना है हमें है
हौसले पे सवार आगे बढ़ रहा है इंडिया और इसे रफ्तार दे रहे हैं 10 करोड़ हीरोज।
आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला मिल ही जाना है हमें
हौसले पे सवार आगे बढ़ रहा है इंडिया और इसे रफ्तार दे रहे हैं 10 करोड़ हीरोज।
धीरे धड़के आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला तेरे ही जाना है
हौसले की सवार आगे बढ़ा है इंडिया और इसी रफ्तार में 10 करोड़ किलोमीटर
धीरे धड़के आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला तेरे ही जाना है
हौसले की सवार आगे बढ़ा है इंडिया और इसी रफ्तार में 10 करोड़ किलोमीटर
धीरे धड़के आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला तेरे ही जाना है
हौसले की सवार आगे बढ़ा है इंडिया और इसी रफ्तार में 10 करोड़ किलोमीटर
धीरे धड़के आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला तेरे ही जाना है
हौसले की सवार आगे बढ़ा है इंडिया और इसी रफ्तार में 10 करोड़ किलोमीटर
धीरे धड़के आज फिर होने को है चलने का बढ़ने का है हौसला जितना भी फासला तेरे ही जाना है
Hi Loknath, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Let me do my work. I should be able to hear you now. I couldn't hear you earlier.
Hi, Sanjeev.
Hi Janet, how are you? Good morning. This is
Hello.
Sanjeev.
Lovely to see you all. Thanks for having me, Sanjeev.
Likewise, and great to have you all here. Hi Marut, good afternoon.
Hi, Sanjeev. Good afternoon. We were a little delayed in the earlier session.
Okay. So that's still going on?
No, it's just got over.
Okay.
Sanjeev, you are looking fitter by the day.
You see, with the lockdown, my wife told me that we have to cut budgets because there is no groceries available. So I had no choice but to lose some weight.
That's true.
How are things out in India? Thought it was slightly getting better.
So clearly they're getting better. The second wave did shake us. We weren't expecting it with the level of intensity. And we all know that however good your infrastructure is in India, healthcare infrastructure is not that great, but at some level the capacity gets used up, right? The system gets overwhelmed. The good thing is that the country, both government, private sector, community reacted really fast, and we managed to bring it down to manageable levels. There's significant expansion in hospital beds, oxygen supply, medicines. That's changed quite a bit actually in the last 3 or 4 months. And the pace of vaccination has improved, though we keep pushing the government to do more and more. but that's improved as well. And as a result of that, we think our cases are in control. I mean, we're reporting about 30,000 cases a day, same as the UK. I wonder why we are on an amber list. We should become green plus, keeping in mind our population. But actually, I think there's some announcement that's likely today, though effective probably early October, for merging the amber and the green list. So we'll wait to see, because I'm actually coming to London tomorrow. My son starts college at Loughborough end of next week. So we'll come isolate for the first 5 days and then leave him. As typical Indian parents, we'll go and leave him to college. Make sure that he doesn't run away anywhere else.
Oh, well, listen, if you stop off in London, it would be lovely to see you.
Sure. I've just kept my schedule open this time because we're going to be running around more around him. But as we know more about his plans, I'll definitely take your contacts from CII.
Loughborough is a great choice, by the way. It's a fantastic university.
Thank you. And
so, Sanjeev, we are at 4 and we have everybody online. So
okay, let's start.
Sure. We also have the Alderman Vincent Kevney as well. Welcome. Good morning.
Hello, Sanjay. Good to see you all. I'd have to say, as a very good friend of ours, their son is starting in Loughborough this year as well. So perhaps we should swap details and put the two of them in touch with each other.
That sounds great. And if it's okay with you, I'll ask CI to connect us offline after this, and would love to do that. And I'll get Janet's contacts as well.
Very good.
Right.
We are a go, Marut?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome and good morning, UK. Good morning, good afternoon, India. Welcome to this CII's India-UK annual conference. And the session today is on collaboration between India and UK, specifically financial collaboration, where we discuss ways to institutionalize our cooperation and enhance trade and investments in this post-pandemic world. Let me start by welcoming our special guest speakers, who are also our panelists, the Alderman Vincent Keveny, Senior Alderman below the Aldermanic Chair for the City of London, Janet Coyle, the Managing Director for London and Partners, and Loknath Mishra, CEO and Managing Director for ICICI UK and Europe. Earlier this month, on the 2nd of September, the UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak and the Indian Finance Minister, Ms. Sitharaman, held the 11th UK-India Economic and Financial Dialogue, which saw agreements on tackling climate change and boosting investment through economic cooperation, financial services and trade. And we know that we've seen the disruption caused by this pandemic, and yet we believe that the relations between India and UK will only get stronger. And this resolve has been emphasized by both our governments with the ambitious India-UK roadmap to 2030 announced by our two prime ministers in May earlier this year. Over the course of this pandemic, India has seen significant number of reforms, and our finance minister announced certain key ones, which I will just talk about. It started just prior to the pandemic with the lowering of corporate tax rates, amongst the most competitive in the world now, privatization of several public sector banks and one general insurance company. In the past, these were considered to be jewels of the government, but this government is very clear. It wants to bring in open competition, it wants to bring in capital, foreign and domestic, and it believes government should not be doing the role of business. India has also announced a new government-owned development financial institution to facilitate the flow of long-term funds for long-term projects, infrastructure, etc. that India sorely needs. The insurance sector has got further liberalized, as many of you would know, with ownership, foreign ownership going up now to 74%, which provides greater opportunities to companies all over the world, including the UK. The government has recently moved ahead with the announcement of the Bad Bank and has pledged an amount of 30,000 crore rupees towards that. So this should just help us create this whole I would say, process where many of us who are lenders, we do end up at times making wrong calls or bets go bad. And if there is a process to resolve that, it just helps create greater efficiency in the whole system. Finally, the government is also keen to develop an international financial services center, the IFSC, in Gujarat at Gift City, Gujarat, and we can discuss some of that. Keeping many of these reforms in mind, there are several areas of collaboration that are possible between our two nations, and let me touch upon a few of them. First is across startups. This is clearly a big focus of the UK. It's been a focus in India as well. As CII, we have helped set up 2 fintech hubs, one in the state of Maharashtra, one in the south in Vizag. And this is where companies in both countries could work together. Second is on regulatory aspects. We believe that financial services will see tremendous growth in India. The UK is a champion for it. How can we get our regulators to collaborate and possibly create some minimum protocols, common protocols for financial services businesses and in particular startups to seamlessly access each other's markets? We also believe, my third point is educational academia participation with industry, again on both sides. And we think this is again something that is critical going forward, we know for India at least. Fourth, very clearly, is the issue of climate change, COP26. India has a long way to go. We know what we need to do. We know we can access technology from all over the world, but we do also need to access capital. And I believe that there are particular pools of green finance that are available in the UK, and let us discuss how can we harness some of that. And finally, we have corporates, not only our startups are becoming unicorns, but we've got other large corporates growing in India that want to access the UK market and vice versa, whether in banking, in insurance. Loknath is a example of banking over there. So I believe that there are multiple opportunities that are possible, and we will discuss these going forward. But with that, let me pause right now and hand this over to the Alderman Vincent Kevney. Welcome once again, and for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. I think that's been a very helpful summary of many of the critical points of engagement between our two great countries. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Alderman Vincent Keaveney. I have to say, I'm starting by sending apologies on behalf of the Lord Mayor, Alderman William Russell, who is due to address you all today. Unfortunately, the Lord Mayor has been caught up on some urgent business that needs to be dealt with today. But I have to say, subject to the election, subject to the formalities that lie ahead of me this month, I am due to become the next Lord Mayor of the City of London this coming November. So you may become rather more familiar with me over the year ahead and be hearing from me a little bit more as well in the coming year. Perhaps this looking into the potential future is appropriate for today's conference as we try to imagine what the next phase of partnership between our two countries will look like. We have a very strong foundation. We have a record number of students from India being accepted into UK universities, some of them those students known to participants on the call today, increasing almost 20% from last year, which is a great step forward. And we are very proud to have an estimated 1.6 million of the Indian diaspora living in the UK, the living bridge that Prime Minister Modi refers to in many of his speeches. In business too, we have great bonds. Over the last 20 years, the UK has invested over £20 billion in India, and the reciprocal investment supports over 500,000 jobs in the two countries. This has led to Indian companies' revenue growing by nearly 90% in the last 5 years. I believe, and I've seen it on my visits to India, this relationship is only going to get stronger, whether that's through the India-UK 2030 roadmap that announced earlier this year by our prime ministers, the increased government-to-government interaction between us, including the free trade negotiations, and let us all hope that those negotiations will bear fruit in the reasonably near future, or the work of individual businesses like Barclays Bank, who will invest nearly £300 million to expand their operations in India in the near future. So what's important to me, to the Lord Mayor, to the entire City of London, is how we build on this strong foundation and take our long-lasting relationship to even greater heights. I mentioned Barclays as one of my examples because I believe, as Sanjeev has just highlighted in his 4 areas of focus, financial and professional services offers us a great opportunity for growth and for sharing of our expertise. It's a sector where the City of London Corporation is hoping to see increased trade between our countries. And I'm pleased to see that both our governments are moving in this direction too, as the recent economic and financial dialogue outlined. Very important reminder to us all of the importance of this sector in the context of the relationship. And it's in this spirit of unity between the City and India that we have co-founded the India-UK Capital Markets Working Group. It was established to tap long-term, low-cost pools of capital from sovereign wealth funds, for instance, but indeed others, and to identify what is needed to encourage the development of a vibrant capital market in India and between India and the UK. Only a couple of months ago, the group put out its first report, and it's clear from that India's capital markets represent a great opportunity for international finance, potentially addressing, as Sanjeev has mentioned again in his 4 remarks, one of the challenges, the challenge of capital to ensure climate change is dealt with. The transition to a net new and net zero economy is addressed. We believe that the City can add value to this existing work in this area. We'll share the outputs of that group, the Capital Markets Working Group, with UK and Indian policymakers in government and in the regulators, and of course also with private sector stakeholders in the industry. And through this, to develop potential policy changes that will strengthen India's debt capital markets. That objective is particularly close to my own heart as a debt capital markets lawyer. I have a real interest in ensuring that the capital markets of the world, but in this case, particularly the capital markets of India, grow and thrive in the international environment. And so that's just one example of where our long-standing partnership could go over the very near term. If I listed them all, well, I think this address would go on perhaps a little bit longer than our chairman this morning would appreciate. So perhaps that's a good place to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd have to say again, our relationship is one of great strength and it's one of great promise. We've achieved a great deal, but there's many, many more opportunities that our partnership offers us. So let's work together to take advantage of those opportunities. And I hope over the year ahead as Lord Mayor that I will be able to contribute something to that. And I hope that I'll have an opportunity to meet many of you in India at some point during the year. So thank you very much. And I hope the rest of the conference goes very well indeed. Back to you, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Vincent, and congratulations and our very best wishes in advance. I'm sure this will mean that we will engage even more. Look forward to that as well. With that, let me now move to Janet for her opening remarks. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And congratulations, Alderman Keith Mayor, on your upcoming role as Lord Mayor. I really look forward to working with you on our sort of global goals, and particularly with India. So yes, as you've just outlined, my name is Janet Coyle. I'm the Managing Director for Business for the London and Partners. So we are London's business growth destination agency. And our role is to really create economic growth here that's sustainable, that's resilient, and that's inclusive. And what I mean by that, when we talk about resilient, it's looking at those resilient sectors. We do a lot of work with data, as I'm sure many of you do, and really looking at those sectors that will still be with us in 5-10 years time. So we're talking a lot today around financial services and that collaboration between India and the UK. So we do a lot in the fintech, cybertech space. So we're headquartered here in London. We've got offices in North America, China, Europe, India. We have offices in Mumbai and Bangalore. I work very closely with the teams of the Department of Trade and Investment. And just to build on really some of what Alderman Keaveney has outlined, which I found fascinating, is just to add a little, maybe a little bit more colour and statistics to that. We've talked about that, the agreements and the collaboration between the UK and India. And I totally agree that I think the relationship is getting stronger and stronger, and we're seeing that in the data. So trade and investment has continued to increase between our two countries, record levels year on year, which I particularly find very exciting. And there was a Grant Thornton report together with the CII that showed that 850 Indian companies have got a presence in the UK. 53% of your fastest growing companies have got a presence in London, and we keep reading these fantastic reports about these unicorns in India. So I think, you know, you're experiencing some rapid growth, particularly in that technology sector. And I suppose it's no surprise to many of you in this conference that the Department of International Trade's latest annual report showed that India has retained its position as the second largest foreign direct investment investor into the UK, and that's the second year in a row. So it's really, really great to see that it's not just the relationship that's strong, but the data is actually backing that up. Just last year in 2020, London as a city received more foreign direct investment in terms of projects than any other city in the world. So FDI flows were down by about 40% globally, but London fortunately managed to buck that trend. And about a third of all Indian foreign direct investment projects globally come into London. So it's really, really exciting for us. And then when you think about, for us, our financial year starts in April each year. And just from April this year, we've already helped 12 more Indian companies set up here, and I have met some of them personally. So it's just really fantastic to find a way to really help them scale. I'll just give you a couple of examples. And again, no surprise, they're really either in the fintech sector, edtech sector, or health tech. Those again are those sort of real resilient sectors that we're seeing. So you've got that fantastic edtech unicorn in India called Upgrad. Many of you will be familiar with Upgrad. They set up an office in London earlier this year, and I've been working with Saranjit, who's the CEO for Europe, if you like, who's responsible for really scaling the business here. The company that you're all very familiar with, Infosys, huge Indian company. I've got a meeting with them this afternoon. They're hiring 1,000 new staff here over the next 3 years. And that's because the demand for their services has significantly increased during the pandemic. So I'm meeting them this afternoon just to see how we can collaborate and keep supporting their growth here in the UK. And then Wipro, again, very big household name in India. I'm working very, very closely with the head of Wipro for the UK, who's recently invested 16 million in an innovation centre in Holborn in London. And again, we're working very, very closely with them to really understand how we can help them be really successful with this innovation centre. So that's really exciting for us. And I think I've been reflecting a little bit on why they're choosing London and the broader UK. And I think, you know, some of the reasons are the same reasons probably we've had year on year. It's because, you know, they want to access, you know, the 250 banks that we have here, the access to global finance and the time difference. It's really great to have a base here for Indian companies because they can access the US market as well as their home market in India. We can help companies access all the fantastic talent, and talent seems to be the number one important factor, if you like. If you're a high growth company and looking to establish a presence somewhere, they really need to tap into the universities, but also into the ecosystem for talent. But on the sort of the reverse of that, if you like, we have lots of companies here in London, high growth companies that are looking to access your market, the India market. So it definitely goes both ways in terms of trade and investment. They're finding the Indian market extremely attractive. Some of them are looking to raise finance in India. Others are looking to build partnerships. We have a program that we started at London and Partners a few years ago now called the Mayor's International Business Program to help our high growth businesses to go international. And we've created a bespoke program between London and India to really have this almost like always on program. So rather than just, you know, a trade mission at one moment in time, then our team in Bangalore and Mumbai are providing them with this ongoing service of helping them to tap in to opportunities across India, introduce them to potential funders, but also partners. So that's very exciting for us. You've already touched on the trade agreement, so I won't go, you know, too much into detail there. And I know the Prime Minister made that fantastic announcement just about the new jobs that sort of are aligned with the New Deal, and £533 million of new investment from India into the UK. So we're all very excited about that. And that deal includes businesses, again, a big household name, especially during the pandemic, Serum Institute of India. Now, I met Mr. Poonawalla just a few months ago now, and again, really, really struck by what they're doing in India at this very important time, but also their plans here in the UK. So that we've got lots of examples like that. And just to flag, because I know you're focusing very much on finance with this conference today, I think like Bangalore, like Mumbai, London has emerged as one of the world's leading hubs for high impact investment. And over the past 5 years, the level of investment into what we call mission-driven companies, these high impact companies, has gone up by over 800%. Is phenomenal. And I know we share a lot of the same values in that regard with many of your cities and investors who are looking for those real purpose-led companies. So it's great. I just feel that we're very much aligned. So as Alderman Keaveney just mentioned, you know, this relationship in the future is just going to get stronger. So I just wanted to share that data to say, in a reality, we're actually seeing that relationship bear fruit. You know, it's very, very strong. And I'm really hoping to actually be able to come and visit before too long. But I'll stop there. I'm conscious of time and very happy to take questions during the panel. So thank you.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you for highlighting all those multiple existing partnerships already in so many different sectors between India and the UK, from the startups to the established big technology companies. On the vaccination front, incidentally, Adar Poonawalla is from Pune, the same city that I live in, and we're good friends as well. So yes, so many multiple opportunities in these challenging times as well. With that, let me now request Loknath for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for setting the context. It's clearly a very, very important discussion item in the current context of the bilateral relationship where we are heading. Nice to hear to my fellow panelist, Vincent, congratulations on your taking over as Lord Mayor. We are looking forward to that. And Janet really setting out the details of variety of things in which you are working. And in that sense, my job is a little more difficult because I am the last speaker, but I also have the unique advantage of an Indian having worked in London for quite some time now. So I am a confused person in that sense. Sometimes I look at it from Indian perspective and sometimes I look at it from UK perspective. But let me bring that perspective on the table. First of all, I think having lived and worked here, 2-3 things which strikes me very, very clearly. One is the person-to-person relationship between the two countries is fantastic. As Vincent mentioned, in terms of 1.8 million Indians living here, so many students coming here. I see continuous stream of my fellow business customers visiting London all through the year. So I think in terms of comfort of people coming here, doing business here, the business environment, the regulatory environment is very, very supportive. So I must say that there are a variety of things here which really welcomes and support anybody who wants to do business in UK. Given that context, I was always wondering why is it that the bilateral relationship have not been to a different level. I'm happy to see huge progress being made on that and a path towards finally, hopefully, leading to the free trade agreement. And clearly, there are opportunities and scope in both the countries to partner on multiple areas. I must also say that while there was some concern earlier in terms of Brexit, how it is going to shape up the post-Brexit world, while I don't have data in detail, but my gut feel, the sense what I get is that there are quite a few deals happening, a lot of companies are coming over here. So that's really encouraging to see UK shaping up in a fantastic way in a post-Brexit world. I continue to see huge interest among investor and business community to come and do business here. So that's really, really encouraging. Again, I haven't seen a data, but my gut feel is that I keep meeting various people who are willing and happy to do business here. On the financial partnership, in terms of financial services, both India and UK are significantly service-led economy. In UK, it is almost 70%, and in India, it's about 50%. Services are a very significant part of the economy. And of course, financial services within that is a very critical part of the cornerstone of the relationship between the two countries. A lot of areas were highlighted what Sanjeev mentioned during economic and finance dialogue, which I was privileged to participate in that, in which many areas of financial partnership was highlighted. I must say that there is already a lot of institutional work happening to develop the collaboration between the two. We heard from very good work being done by City of London. We heard from Janet in terms of what London and Partner is doing, what DIT is doing. And also under the aegis of economic and finance dialogue, there is a formal group formed, which is called India-UK Financial Partnership, which is headed by Uday Kotak from India and David Craig from UK. They are working on some critical areas in the financial partnership and coming out with details in terms of the potential area of cooperation in some of these areas. One of the areas they have already come out with a fantastic report, which is on Gift City, on which the work was done by ICICI Bank and Standard Chartered Bank. They have made a detailed recommendation in terms of the key changes that is required in the current context, what we have on Gift City to make it really a very strong force in terms of Indian financial services industry. And they have been very ambitious in terms of making some of these recommendations. So we are looking forward to really having some significant push in terms of some of this regulatory enable on Gift City side. That's a big agenda item from the Indian government side, and we believe that that is something which is going to open up a lot of opportunities for UK financial services as well. In my mind, if you really ask me, apart from traditional areas, which is in banking, insurance, asset management, pension fund, I would really like to flag off, based on my experience, about 3 areas. One is, of course, in terms of fintech. I see huge opportunities between the two, in the sense that it is an area of strength for both the countries. there are some areas in which it could be complementary. Sanjeev himself has demonstrated the power of fintech in terms of delivering business and value to the customers in India in a very, very big way. So I think there is a huge market opportunity in India as well as in UK, and there is an opportunity to really partner on the technology side. I see a lot of activity, lot of support even in UK to really enable new fintech companies to come up and develop their business here. So this is one area which I think is something which can become the area of big partnership and win-win partnership between the two countries, both in terms of technology as well as market access, both the sides. Second area I see, which I feel could be of big enabler. Vincent mentioned about the fact that City of London has done fantastic work in capital market. I think UK and particularly London has a very, very deep financial market. In India, we have a variety of opportunities in terms of investment, because as the country grows, it will need capital of varied types of capital to meet specific type of requirements. So, for example, I was looking at a recent announcement by Honorable Finance Minister in India, where she mentioned that they are going to monetize 600,000 crore Indian rupees of assets, and Sanjeev mentioned about variety of privatization which is happening. We have a lot of opportunities on the distress fund side. So I think in terms of area of opportunities, there are large opportunities to invest. UK and London particularly has very deep financial market. Question is, how do we convert it into a framework structure where money starts flowing by way of proper investment into the country through the right structure and through the right regulatory guidelines. So that is something we need to really think through and see how do we increase it manifold. In many times, as of now, India gets categorized as one of the emerging market, and many of the fund managers passively allocate a small proportion of their fund size as per their normal investment philosophy. I believe that there is a possibility to customize and create structures which can pull much more additional funds into the country. And of course, last one, I think some of our fellow panelists talked about that, is in terms of climate finance and sustainable finance. Again, if you look at ESG, there are a lot of opportunities for investment into the country. Question is, do we have the right vehicle? Do we have the right framework? Do we have a way in which it can be measured in the right through the right process? And do we have standards through which some of these opportunities could become investable, so to say, from the global funds perspective? And again, I see a lot of funds willing and keen to look at opportunity, provided it makes reasonable sense to them, provided it offers the reasonable assurance that this indeed will deliver what is required to be delivered. So I would stop here, keeping in mind the time limit, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Loknath. And you've actually touched upon a number of topics, so I am going to come back and bring some of those up so we can delve a little deeper. We fortunately do have the time. And from any of the other attendees, if there are questions, please either raise your hand or ask a question in the chat box, and I'll keep looking out for that as well. But let me start off with Jared. Jared, you talked about some of the startups that are already coming in from India into the UK, and we know that the UK and London in particular was really the fintech startup hub, if one were to say. And we think India is a big aspiring market for a number of these fintechs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that the CII has set up a couple of fintech hubs in India. London by itself is a very big hub. How can we find a smooth way to exchange opportunities for companies to come, maybe spend 4 months, 6 months in the other country, learn what's required over there, find out what the opportunities are? Any thoughts, ideas from you?
Yeah, in fact, I've got more thoughts listening to you and the other speakers, to be honest, because I think when you talk about the fintech hubs in India, we've got fintech hubs here. You know, we've got Level 39 in Canary Wharf. We've got a number of different fintech clusters, and we also run something at London and Partners called the Fintech Club, which is a community in London of fintech companies. So I'm thinking there must be a way of connecting the fintech hubs as well as the individual companies to find a way of sort of having that collaboration at the sort of accelerator level. Some of the businesses who are actively exploring opportunities in India are in fintech. So we've got fintech, cyber, some ed tech, because I think you've been experiencing phenomenal growth in India in ed tech in the last year. But staying on the topic of fintech, I do think there's more. Whether they would actually come and spend 4 months, it depends on the size of the business. If they've got someone who can really make decisions, if they've got 2 co-founders, it makes it slightly easier, doesn't it? Whereas one could actually go and spend that time and really get into your ecosystem and get to really learn, which is a great idea. But I'm really happy to explore with our MIBP India program how we could maybe take it to the next level, maybe with you or some of your networks, some of your contacts. And I'm also happy to talk to some of our sort of fintech accelerators to see if we can connect them with the fintech accelerators in India. That might already be happening. I don't know. I haven't checked it with them, but I'm very happy to.
Sure. Loknath, any thoughts at your end on this?
Sanjeev, I think what I have seen is quite a few of the new fintech coming to UK and setting up their shop, and I think there are a variety of support mechanism which is available there. I understand even the new visa system allows a lot of such entrepreneurs to be able to get a visa and move here. I have also seen some of them, I'm not sure under which scheme, getting some financial support. There are opportunities in terms of allowing you to set up your shop initially through some of these fintech parks. So I think there are quite a few enablers which are in place for growth and development and scaling up, more importantly, of some of these fintech who have ideas. I'm sure, I think looking at the trend, fintech seems to be looking like an area where UK and London, not only London, frankly, even outside of London, is coming up quite nicely. And it, in a way, it seems to be moving towards having a critical mass, so to say. I think it will emerge as one of the big hubs on fintech for sure, is my sense.
Okay. Let me, in a way, ask an associated question, but at a more broad level, which is that one of the big requirements for companies in India is to access capital, because the levels of growth are so high that just domestic capital sources aren't sufficient. And Loknath, given the fact that you're sitting, as you said, in the middle of the UK and India, what do you see as opportunities? And more importantly, are there any hindrances that you would like to bring out that need to be addressed?
So what I see is there are very significant number and varied type of capital providers in this market, provided of course if you have the right idea and right people behind it. So the key issue is that people who are seeking to source capital, they have to really know what is the right provider for them, because banks may not be the right provider of capital at certain point of time and certain stage of development. There could be somebody else. It could be a set of family office. It could be a private equity fund, depending on what stage of development of your business plan you are there in your journey. But if you look at it in terms of the spectrum of capital providers, it's quite a huge spectrum of capital provider which is available. As I told you, starting with a family office willing to invest, going to a small boutique funds willing to invest on that, and then going into larger set of private equity funds which are willing to support you. And finally, of course, you have the traditional form of finance in the form of banks and capital market going into that. So really, you have to see which stage you are, and then accordingly find out who are the right provider of capital. I understand there are some who are even providing the seed capital in the initial stage. So clearly, there is a lot of enablers and ecosystem which is available to source right type of capital for you, starting from a startup phase, right, going right up to your IPO stage.
Sure. Janet, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think we've seen a real shift in recent years in the UK in terms of availability of capital. And I think we've just heard the variety of ways you can access that capital, whether it's family funds, whether it's, debt finance, whether it's capital markets. But in terms of, I think what we've seen certainly in the UK and in London, and even this year, we've seen record levels of VC investment, 7.9 billion just in the first half of this year. That's way above previous years. And what's exciting, I think, is we always used to have enough sort of seed level for startups in the UK. And then we used to start to see some of the business going elsewhere internationally for that sort of Series B, C. Now there is that funding here. So the scale-ups can actually continue to grow. They get the support, they get the funding. We're seeing more, we've got 100 unicorns now in the UK, which for our size is a fantastic number, 70 in London. But we're also seeing companies now list very successfally on the London Stock Exchange. So we're seeing that sort of full journey, which I think will continue to grow here. And that's whether that's a company that was, born and scaled here in London or coming over from Bangalore or Pune or Mumbai. We are very, very keen to help companies from India access all that support and connect them into the funders and the investors.
No, that's very good to know, and I think be very useful for companies from here. We have a question from Rajiv Kaul. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, I was just wondering if there was any possibility of trying to get both angel finance in the initial stage and thereafter private equity funding for the thousands of startups which are coming up actually every month. I think CII, we had done a study, and I think something like 20,000 plus startups are coming up every year. And really for them to grow, finance is definitely a constraint. And keeping in mind that, the recent problems, the border problems and consequent other problems that are flowing out of the tension between India and China, I think this is perhaps maybe an opportunity for CII to partner with the people, perhaps, I don't know what is the body called because I'm not a finance guy, to try and, take maximum opportunity of this present situation. Thank you.
Sure. Janet, Loknath, either of you, anyone willing to take a stab at this?
Yeah, first of all, I love your backdrop. Is that Golden Gate Bridge? Love it. Yeah, I mean, I think there is an opportunity. I can't really speak on behalf of CII, so I don't quite know how you as an organisation can facilitate that. But if you are able to either be a convener of angel investors and debt equity, or whether you actually have a fund yourself. So I think you're probably better qualified to speak about that, but it's a great idea. Anything that can help.
And on the UK side, any thoughts on the UK side about accessing, are there any pools of funds, or is there a way for CII to tie up with an appropriate body at the City of London to facilitate this for companies on both sides?
Yeah, that's what I had in mind, Sanjeev. Not tying up with one company, but some organization. And from CII side, I'm sure either you could kick it off and chair that group, or we could get one of our other former presidents involved in this field. I'm sure there'll be many people who will be happy to sort of take up this initiative.
Sure.
I think over to Janet, I think, for her response.
Yeah, I think let me talk to the City of London and see what's possible, and then let's continue this conversation just to see how we can. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely connect you into funds. It's more that role of CII and how we work with you to make sure that we give access to your membership, and maybe with the City of London as well. We need to have that sort of triangular conversation, don't we?
Janet, maybe to begin with, we would be happy to arrange on CII, and I'm taking the liberty, being a former past president, to request Sanjeev to kick off a virtual meeting with either a body or several of your members in this field. And we'll invite entrepreneurs and startups from Indian side. And I think you'll get a lot of interest from all over India, right? Whether it's New Delhi, or whether it's Gurgaon or Karnataka or Pune or any other place, including places, smaller tier 2 cities are now, generating a lot of startups, and colleges and universities also. They have a lot of incubators where students in their third and fourth year are, thinking about this.
Sure. No, I think what we'll do even as CII is reach out to the counterparts there and find out what's the right institution there that we can end up working with for this. But it's a good point.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Loknath, you talked about the GIFT City, the International Financial Center that India is desirous of creating there. And again, given the vantage point that you have, what do you see are steps that we need to take in the next few years to start building this as a robust center going forward? And this is not a GIFT City versus a UK or London being the international financial service sector. London way ahead, irrespective of what may have happened with Brexit, more as a way for us to see as an additional opportunity that we can build, and our government is desirous of building. So any thoughts that you have on this?
Thank you, Sanjeev. I think it's clearly a big area of focus and opportunity for the country. Fortunately, I see the right amount of push coming into that, even from all the stakeholders. I think if you ask me, of course, we can get into some bit of details, but largely it has to do with streamlining our regulations in terms of the fact that you need a unified set of regulations which are simple for people to operate in line with as a benchmark to other international financial centers, so to say. Just to give an example, just to give a color around the kind of things this particular group which worked on has recommended, for example, is one of the things they have said is you need to put it under a separate, dedicated income tax circle, so to say, so that they don't have to really coordinate with variety of other people who are outside of it, who don't understand the requirement. There was also of course, apart from regulation, there was also a recommendation and talk about the fact that you also need to create various soft infrastructure in that place for people really to be able to move there and work there. So including in terms of your right kind of international schools, the hotels and restaurants and stuff like that, which will encourage people to really physically move there. And frankly, I don't see it as gift city versus UK, so to say. Frankly, I think if you look at it from UK investor perspective, some of them get dissuaded by regulation in terms of the fact that they'll have to deal with a lot of things. So this could also provide an opportunity for a lot of UK firms who are willing to do business there to do it through the gift city, so to say. So I think it's not one versus another. I think it's complementary. And I see it as something which could potentially be a gateway into India, and with much less regulation and much less sort of requirements to be fulfilled in that sense. But broadly, in a nutshell, while this report has detailed many areas, in a nutshell, I think it's largely to do with streamlining the regulation, coupled with soft local infrastructure to be in place, benchmark it with the best in class. And I think I'm happy to see the fact that the regulators are willing to look at it. They are willing to think it through afresh and see what is it that will work for this center. So I think it's making good progress. A lot of buzz, a lot of activity, and a lot of thinking around it. So I'm sure in some time it will come up as a good international financial center, hopefully.
Thanks. Those are, I think, some very clear thoughts and suggestions. Janet, coming back to you, Indian firms attract, again, a lot of capital from the UK. And the whole expansion of what governance is and means towards ESG, towards rights, whether business rights, human rights, is increasingly playing a significant role by institutional investors in their choice of making investments. From your own vantage point, for not necessarily the large Indian companies, the large ones that are international, know how to access most of these funds and are probably moving in their own journey towards ESG. But the next set of funds, the mid-size, not funds, companies, the next set of businesses, how do they really understand what these requirements are and how do they comply with it? They need sometimes help doing it. They don't necessarily have a battery of lawyers and others who can help them on such matters. Any thoughts or any experiences with similar mid-sized companies in the UK that you would like to share with us?
Of course, yeah. So, I mean, we're very happy to help companies who are exploring coming over to the UK, help them to navigate some of this. I think the ESG goals are becoming more and more important, particularly for investors. And, you know, the government have set some very quite ambitious net zero goals. London, the Mayor of London has set net zero goal of 2030. The wider UK is 2050. And there's a big campaign at the moment to try and get all businesses here to pledge to be net zero in line with the government. So, you know, if Indian companies are thinking of coming over, establishing a presence, securing investment, if they can show at least their commitment to scaling their business in a sustainable way. And what we're doing at the moment is we're working out a strategy so we can actually help businesses, you know, not just help them sign that pledge and make that commitment, but fulfill that commitment. How can we help them build that plan, make sure they understand where their emissions are, example, and how they can reduce those. So we're getting to sort of understand a lot more now about the detail behind that. And then around, building an inclusive workforce. And again, we can help by making the right connections, tapping them into the ecosystem, making sure they know where to go for the talent. And I think we all need to be a little bit more creative these days into how we adhere to the ESG goals for inclusivity, for sustainability, for environment and clean tech. But there's a lot of support here, very much London and partners, of course, I would say that, but there's others out there as well that we can connect the Indian companies to, and maybe even before they even come over and pitch for funding, we arrange something like this for those companies and bring in a couple of experts who can really help them understand what they should be doing. If they're looking to come and access funding, they need to get their story right. I mean, that's storytelling, whether it's a pitch, whether it's an introduction, they need to make sure that they're actually getting the story and they're getting the right kind of alignment with the values of these investors that are very focused on ESG. So there's a number of factors that they should be taking into account, I would suggest. But again, we're happy to help them navigate that.
Thank you.
Sanjeev, if I may just add, if you permit, I think I have had a very interesting conversation with a impact fund here looking to invest in
I'll
India.
ask you to make a very quick point, Loknath, but then I've got one final question for both of y'all, which I have to get through before we finish.
Sure, a very quick one. So I think in India, there are a lot of businesses which are working on this area, but they don't measure it. And there are ways in which the impact can be measured. So for example, we looked at a company which provides self-help group funding, but it's not measured in terms of what impact it is happening, it is doing to the society in terms of the living standard of the people who are being funded. And I understand there are agencies present there who can really do this work for people who are doing this business. So I think it's not only important to do the things, but to also get the right measurement, talk about it, know where you are heading in terms of variety of those goals. So I think those are also equally important.
Correct, very correct. Okay, in the interest of time, one last question to both of you all, and I'll first start with Loknath and then we'll end with Janet. Is this Roadmap 2030, which was launched earlier this year, working towards an enhanced trade partnership agreement and then eventually an FTA? What would be top three things that you would like to see in either the enhanced trade partnership and the FTA from where you are and where you see things? So 3 things, Loknath, and then 3 things, Janet.
I would say from our perspective, of course, social mobility is going to be one big thing for sure, which includes professional fintech players, students, all of that. I think that's a big part of the ask from the countryside. Second would be fintech and startup ecosystem. How does that get enabled in that? And the last one I would say would be technology, engineering, research. That would be the last area, which could include your life sciences. So this will be the 3 areas from my perspective.
Sure. Janet?
It's always hard going second, isn't it? When you think, I was going to say that. So I think collaboration around innovation. We're doing a lot of work at the moment around open innovation and what that really means for a city, for businesses. We've had a number of Indian large corporates, but their heads of innovation join our recent fellowship. And I would love to find a way of this sort of roadmap toward 2030 includes a real collaboration around open innovation would be one for me. And that could include the research, but also looking at different models of open innovation, and innovation canvas. You know, there's a number of different ways that we could formulate that. The second is, you know, probably because I'm a bit of a data geek, I'd love to sort of set some goals towards 2030 in terms of those sort of trade and investment. You talk about fintech and those collaboration across the fintech hubs. What does that really mean in practice? And should we sort of aim to sort of deliver some very sort of ambitious trade and investment goals in different sectors? So we could have the fintech clusters coming together, we could have the edtech clusters, and really trying, I think my third area is more from an entrepreneurial perspective. How can we, you know, take this sort of incredible community of high growth fintech businesses in London and the ones in India and connect them together, and maybe together with the VCs and the broader financiers as well, is how can we on this roadmap start to build these communities, because a lot of times they'll learn from each other. So we can put the regulation in place, we can make sure that the visa regime is conducive to bringing Indian companies over and vice versa. We can do all that, and that's really a government responsibility. But to actually then take it to the level of entrepreneurs, which is what, you know, we love doing, and by 2030 actually build these communities together so we can start to see some real impact. Probably quite a long answer there.
Great. No, thank you, both of you. Those were great ending points, but thank you also for all the comments through the hour. And our thanks to the Alderman Vincent as well. He had to leave a little earlier for another engagement, but we've had a great hour of discussions and a bunch of points to take away, which we as CI will put down and engage further with all of you all. So thank you once again. And with that, this session comes to an end.
Thank you. And have a safe journey over to the UK.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.